After the 5th Sakura Wars' failure to stay afloat in Japan, the main franchise was all but cancelled. Year in and year out, there was no word of a 6th entry. Even if the Hanagumi and Hoshigumi no longer had staying power as icons in the gaming space, the brand was still alive and reactive to a very large degree. After a 2-year disappearance from the global market, PC ports of the 4 original games roared onto the scene. With In Hot Blood nowhere to be found, these new reiterations took what was old and tried to spruce it up for a new audience. Little did they know that these would finally be the first games to reach the rest of the world, but not in the way most wanted. Instead of heading over to North America where many fans waited for them, the series instead turned to the obscure home of one of its main characters, Russia. It is unknown how well it did there, but the niche popularity of the series seemed to carry over to the new country, further extending the franchise's reach. After this, the series animation tried to make a comeback. Sakura Wars New York, New York tried to do what Sakura Wars the movie had done before it, and continue the story from where it left off. Following the New York combat review and their battle against the ancient Egyptian King Tut, instead of following New York's main protagonist, Shinjiro Taiga, as his standard self, he is forced to his persona of Peppermint, a concept introduced and seldom used in Sakura Wars 5. The series, while bizarre at times, tried its best to recreate the feeling of playing through one of the games, with boss battles and other romantic interactions aplenty. But compared to the other OVAs and adaptations, the popularity of this entry is moot. After a few months, it faded into obscurity, just like the rest of the franchise. But that didn't mean they didn't try. With the spin-off and the side story culture of the series being ever present, a new team was put together to take advantage of that. Released in March of 2008 for the Nintendo DS, the culmination of their efforts was Dramatic Dungeon Sakura Wars, Because You Were There, a roguelike dungeon crawler. In a genuine attempt to rekindle the Sakura Wars legacy, Sega advertised it as a completely new franchise, even though it was clearly using mechanics that were popularized by the Shiren the Wanderer series with Sakura Wars' storytelling. But unlike previous games, there was an unusually brief amount of time spent on the story. Taking place 1 year after the end of Sakura Wars 5, Yonida has retired, promoting Ogami as the commander of the Teki Geki. During a performance of The Maid of Orleans by Tchaikovsky, Joan of Arc herself appears, causing a calamitous event that transforms Tokyo, and eventually Paris and New York along with it, into a monster-filled labyrinth that incapacitates the Kobu. The members of the 3 respective combat reviews have no choice but to delve deep into these dungeons and investigate. As the game moves on, you gain control of Shinjiro as well, ultimately allowing you to recruit a party of your own choosing from the 18 cast members. The game seemed to be the continuation of the series fans weren't expecting, but could appreciate. 7 years on, and a sequel to this has never materialized, making this what seems to be the true finale for the series in canon. But America would have to say differently. After years of patience and indifference from the Japanese franchise, the 5th entry, the one that was meant for them all along, finally reached stateside. Beginning the import process in 2008, the niche Japanese import publisher NIS America took on the job. Taking 2 years to fully translate every line of dialogue and text, the team worked at a furious and at sometimes hellish pace. Once their work was complete, they released it as a retitled Sakura Wars So Long My Love on the good old PlayStation 2 and exclusively on the Wii in North America and Europe. The hard work and dedication of the team at NIS didn't help this entry, however. While being able to find the right actors to suit the roles and changing things around a bit seemed like it could appeal to American gamers, sadly, they were mistaken. Selling less than 100,000 units, the game was all but a failure in America. Many factors contributed to this. Releasing a 5-year-old game on the dying Wii and now defunct PlayStation 2, their respective markets just didn't have an audience there anymore. Bad marketing and literally no word of mouth left an American populace to not even know of its existence. And because of all of this and the working conditions that were maintained by NIS America, the only publisher who is willing to take on Sakura Wars, will never do so ever again, thus truly marking the end of the franchise for good, unless a bit of false hope was added in. Circa late 2010, just around the release of Sakura Wars 5 in America, a new image was floating around Twitter. This image showed Sakura Wars 6, Stronger Than Love on it, and seemed to depict a setting of Germany, which was hinted at in Sakura Wars New York, New York. On top of all this, Uji Hiroi himself teased that a new Sakura Wars project was to release later that year. Instead of a sequel, the newly announced Sakura Wars Taisho Roman Academy was nothing of the sort. A browser-based game unlike Dramatic Dungeon, Roman Academy tried to emulate what the main franchise had done, but with a social twist. Taking place on the titular Roman Academy, players would create their own character to interact with fellow players and Sakura Wars cast members alike, echoing Sakura Wars Online's desires. For the most part, the game is pure strategy RPG, devolving back to the isometric grids of old from the series' trademark ARMS system. Little information is known about the impact of this title in Japan, but it's sufficing to say it was just like the other entries before it, fading more and more into obscurity. But there was still more to come. Something that was quite bizarre yet fitting to the series' mythos. Sakura Wars Kana Degumi, starting in 2011, was a collaboration with long-running popular girls manga magazine Hana to Yume that reverses the series' classic trope by putting a female protagonist in a troupe full of charming men. The story is that the heroine Neko Miyabi came to Tokyo in order to join the classic Hanagumi as a performer, but ended up assigned to the Kana Degumi or orchestra group. Of course, it turns out the orchestra is also a secret combat troupe for battling demons, but this time instead of kobu, they fight with their own musical instruments. The Kana Degumi was popular enough to receive its own anime adaptation and performed stage shows just like the old Hanagumi and Hoshigumi. While this was the final manga adaptation, there were two final games awaiting the series, and they weren't what fans wanted. Sakura Wars All-Star Collection and Sakura Wars for Mobile were two final entries hoping to cash in on what little was left of the series. All-Star Collection was a trading card game in lieu of popular ones such as Hearthstone, but also included classic Lips gameplay fans loved with little else. Sakura Wars for Mobile, on the other hand, was a social and trading card game hybrid. Using the ever-popular Mobile platform developed by GREE, the game used some elements from the franchise but mostly changed it to the platform's liking. The iconic designs of the original characters were replaced with hyper-sexualized versions of themselves, further deteriorating the franchise's image and fans' opinions alike. While these cash grabs were a slap in the face to fans, one new franchise could try and do them a service: Project Cross Zone. Fighting alongside classic Sega, Capcom, and Namco characters such as Ryu and Ken from Street Fighter, and Yuri Lowell from Tales. The game was the ultimate title for fan service of the less titillating kind. Having Sakura, Erika, Gemini, and Ogami himself appear among these icons left players in awe and amazement of its fighting system, and it was nearly a return to form for the franchise. Even Sakura herself was put on the title right next to other legends, cementing the importance of the franchise to all. Even now, a sequel to this newly beloved franchise is in the works, and once again, Sakura Wars is taking the lead. But as of now, this is where it all ends. Where the franchise could go from here is anyone's guess. All fans have now is the series' iconic music by Kohi Tanaka that can bring out any emotion in you, from sadness to joy. While franchises today struggle to have a musical footprint, Sakura Wars has music that anyone can instantly recognize and relate to. Music that can appeal to a variety of cultures from Japanese to French to old American jazz tones. The longest lasting medium for Sakura Wars has actually been the stage show. After nearly 2 decades, it's still going strong, with nearly the entire cast in tow, performing new and unique plays with the same depth that they had in their early years. Even when Sumere's voice actress, Michi Tomozawa, announced her retirement back in 2002, there was still a special melodramatic farewell stage show that was assembled just for her for the final performance, as no Sakura Wars heroine could retire without fanfare. But how has the franchise affected the gaming industry itself? Well, after Sakura Wars' success on the Sega Saturn, other games followed suit, attempting to blend the series' visual novel and dating elements into a more standard RPG framework. Thousand Arms took a less pure-hearted approach, but combined dating and RPG mechanics into a steampunk world. Langrisser 3 introduced a Sakura Wars-like system in which you can develop trust with members of the female cast, culminating into a romance. Even later on, the Persona series successfully implemented Sakura Wars elements into its own story, but also including time management like Sakura Wars' old adventure mode sections. But those are just story elements. What about gameplay? One particularly forgotten Sega title, Alpha Protocol, fully implemented the lip system, with morally gray choices and a timer counting down to put on the pressure. But really, any branching dialogue game today can thank Sakura Wars for leading the way to this future. The most popular implementation of this is BioWare's Mass Effect series, that chose to take a more black and white approach, while also taking the franchise's ability to use data from other entries to the greater effect. aspect. Last but not least is a rather obscure title, codenamed Steam. Developed by Intelligent Systems, the game's combat system is uncannily similar to the ARMS system, borderlining on ripping it off. However, Intelligent Systems worked with Red Company, now Red Entertainment, on the recent Fire Emblem Awakening, so this might be the case. The closest game you are likely to see to Sakura Wars 6 is Valkyria Chronicles. With much of the Sakura Wars team remaining at Sega, they all decided to work on Valkyria. The game is eerily similar to Sakura Wars, with another alternate history world with wildly unrealistic machinery powered by miraculous technology. Gridless, real-time tactical combat, a heavy emphasis on developing relationships outside of battle, and how those relationships come into play on the battlefield makes Valkyria Chronicles quite similar to Sakura Wars, though it doesn't have the dating sim relationship or time management systems. Instead, all of the character development happens on a rail. Conversely, Sakura Wars didn't have the detailed roster management, training, and equipment upgrading mechanics, but the overall feel of the game is very similar. But in all of this, what happened to Red Company? Well, after the release of Sakura Wars 5, many left for Sega itself. Staying in a publisher role, the company continued to churn out content as much as they could. Soon enough, however, this ended with their acquisition by Chinese game developer Ultizen Games. The rights to the franchise stayed firmly in Sega's grasp, but the company had just become another cog in the machine. The Red in Red Company wasn't just there for fun. It had a meaning. It stood for the Royal Emperor Dragon. That's what they thought of themselves as. And that was what the Sakura Wars franchise was to Japan for a time. But now the meaning had become twisted and contorted. The series was now just a cash grab and cameo franchise, just like the classic Blue Bomber Mega Man. Only a miracle can save the franchise now, and one can only wish. When Uji Hiroi set out to make a new franchise for the Sega Saturn, he wanted to create something more unique than anything else. A romanticized past and a derelict future are what this franchise was and has become. To some it may be a simple dating simulator franchise, but to others it is something different. A franchise about mechs, demons, and romance, a franchise that separated itself from the crowd, creating icons aplenty. For its Japanese and global audience, the series came to define a generation, one that had been left behind by the rest. Sakura Wars is like one of the cherry blossoms that represent it, beautiful and breathtaking, but seldom seen. But now armed with this knowledge, what will you do, dear viewer? Will you become a fan yourself, shouting the series' name to the innumerable masses of the world, or will you just let sleeping dogs lie and go about your day? The choice is yours, but remember one thing, cherry blossoms always bloom once again.
花の命は短くて夢見る月日は駆け足で過ぎゆく残酷な時よ無慈悲なるものだが我が胸に咲き誇る君よ花よ
花の命は短くて
延べに咲く花よ名もなき花たちよ
花の命は短くて
命の限りに咲き誇れ しく輝く春の花よ。初めて出会えしあの日を今我が胸に咲き誇る君よ。戦いを終えて人よ恋を語れ。秘めたる思いは我が胸に。
男と女に恋が生まれて人の命が輝いている。すべての未来を今こそ抱きしめて熱い心歌を高らかに。別れの数だけ出会いがある。
な命の花